Today is March 9th, and you're listening to Plastic Weekly. On today's episode, we talk about Canadian Open bouldering nationals with the national team manager Malek Taleb. I chat with American speed champion John Brosler about the state of speed climbing in the USA, and he gives us a preview of this weekend's American Sport and Speed Nationals. And I score some time with Maria Izquierdo, president of the Pan American Council and member of the IFSC's executive board, and she gives us the inside scoop on what's going to happen at the IFSC Plenary Assembly this weekend in Quebec City. Stick around. Before we get to our interviews, I wanted to give a really big thank you to everyone who listened last week. The show received over 300 downloads in the first 48 hours, and along with all of the amazing comments you sent me, I'm feeling really motivated to keep this project going. So thank you so much. I wanted to clarify one point early on. Some people are already calling this an all-Canadian climbing podcast, and as today's episode makes pretty clear, it's not just about Canada. This project is built for an English-speaking North American audience. Canada can learn a lot from the States, and the States can learn a lot from Canada, and I'm aiming to bring you stories from both sides of the 49th parallel. Yes, Plastic Weekly is produced out of Canada, but I plan on making this a great resource for everyone. I hope you're okay with that. And with that said, and without any hint of irony, let's get into a conversation about Canada's Open Bouldering Nationals last weekend in Edmonton. Canadian Open Bouldering Nationals wrapped up in Edmonton on Sunday with a 10th win for Sean McCall and a second win for Alana Yip. For a full recap of the event and what it means for Canada's national team, I'm joined by one of the managers of Team Canada, Malek Taleb. Hey, Malek.
Hey, Tyler.
So let's get right into it. All of us know the scores already. I want to know from your perspective as somebody that was on the ground at the event, what's the biggest story that came out of this weekend?
Oh man, JJ Ma, for me it was amazing watching him climb. What a comeback! Last time I think it was 2008 that he was competing.
Wow.
So that was definitely a great show and really cool to see. Watching Sean win his 10th event was definitely unreal. I don't know when this is going to be ever repeated in Canada. Also seeing 3 Youth A female competitors make the top 10, that was amazing. But JJ, my goodness, like I've never seen him climb before, and not to take anything from Alana or Sean, but he really stole the show for me.
That's awesome. I've come across a picture on Facebook from back in the day, early 2000s, of Sean McCall, JJ Ma, the setter for the event, Simon Parton, as well as one of the coaches out of Quebec, Matt Johnson, and they all, they're all like late teenagers, and it's such a great picture, especially when you see all 4 of those guys back in Edmonton this year. Really cool to see, that generation coming back, even though, JJ's been out of the game for a long time.
Absolutely.
Very impressive.
Yeah, I was actually standing next to Eric Sethna during finals, and JJ was on the final problem, and he was shaken off halfway on the bonus hold. And Eric was like, "This gives me back memories of youth on lead circuit," and he's just sitting there, But that was definitely amazing.
Very cool. So the Nationals was held at a fairly brand new facility. It was held at the new Rock Jungle climbing gym. What did you think of this place from the lens of a national competition?
Yeah, the facility was great in the sense that it offered a variety of angles. So it made for a really cool final for sure, and different types of setting from problem to another. I thought it was a little too small personally, and I have a tiny gym, but it kind of limited things. I thought, especially in semis, it was a great call from the setting crew and the CEC to split up the qualifiers, as well as the 4+ definitely helped a lot. the format for the finals, but there's nothing that we could have done in semis. So I thought that kind of affected the setting a little bit, and you can kind of see it a little bit in the results.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, last year's nationals, the finals format if I'm right, 5 on, 5 off last year. Is that correct?
Yes, initially it was announced to be 4 plus, but then there was a little bit of worry in terms of how many foreign nationals we were going to have, depending on the names that were registered. And we saw how long it takes at the youth nationals when you have more than six.
Yeah.
Or possibly eight. Let's say, we had 11 in youth nationals. So they made a decision last year to make it 5 on, 5 off. Whereas this year, the decision was to do 4 plus, which actually was pretty nice.
Yeah, I know from my perspective, just sitting in my apartment watching the live stream, the 4 plus is definitely the best possible viewing experience. And I have to give a shout out. I know you were on the ground, so you didn't see any of the live stream, but Pete Woods and Will Johnson did an incredible job of commentating on the event. Really solid live stream. I know it only got about 600 650-ish viewers at its high point, but for Canada that's a great thing, and I'm really glad that all those people watching got to hear from Pete, who historically has such a great background in this, and then Will Johnson,
Absolutely.
who as a climber is such a great resource in terms of his knowledge of climbing and holds
That
and
guy
walls
does
and
everything well.
technique. I know I was so huge props to those guys. They made the experience so much more enjoyable.
That's great.
So what about the setting itself? I know the crew is headed by Simon Parton from BC. Do you know who else was on the crew?
Um, I'm not sure, to be honest, fully.
We have to do a
Um,
better job of giving credit to who our setters
you
are.
know,
It's brutal that
no,
you have no idea.
yeah, for sure. I think it's because I'm not very familiar with the sellers out west as much. I mean, I know a couple of them, but not as much. So unfortunately, I don't know any of their names. But the crew was amazing. The setting was really varied, which I enjoy. Maybe I'll start with finals first because that was, the greatest show.
Sounds good.
I mean, the quality of the climbers, I think, was the best we've had in like forever. No, seriously. So to have 4 plus, you want to have that kind of quality climbers, and that dictated the fact that Simon and his crew could be really creative with the type of setting that they want to have, and it really showed. So finals was amazing. Everything got sent, and yeah, I mean, the pressure was on for Sean, and JJ was keeping the pressure on him, and so it was really cool. There was lots of movement in the standings from one problem to the other. Ilan at one point was second, and then he dropped to fifth, and like it kept on moving, and that kept the excitement going. Semifinals, as I mentioned earlier, I thought the gym kind of dictated the fact that you couldn't have any really lateral movement much. It was, straight up and down kind of thing, because you want to protect the climbers. So you don't want people, when you have 8 people on the wall, it's really hard to create space for each problem. So for the guys, that turned into something where, you needed 4 flashes, or I mean, 5 out of the 6 finalists flashed all 4 problems in semis. Um, and for the girls, it turned into, you needed 1 flash and 3 bonuses, and that's good enough. So semis, I thought, kind of suffered from the gym a bit, um, but all in all, it was still a pretty cool show. Qualifiers was really great. The fact that they were able to, do the qualifier for guys at a different time than the females, didn't end up affecting the setting, and the routes were very varied. Um, my personal style, I would have liked to see the order of the problems the other way around. I think it would have made it for a very different competition in terms of like the qualifiers. Because if you notice, a lot of flashes were happening on 1 and 2, and the shutdown were on 4 and 5. So I feel like if we did it backwards, it would have really, tested the mental toughness of competitors a little bit more than going the way it went. But I'm not, complaining. It's just my style of setting.
Okay. I noticed, throughout the results, there were, I'm gonna say the top six and the top tens for each of the categories were absolutely well earned. But especially in qualifiers, you did find a lot of people who, some of them felt a little bit burned on attempts in terms of, some really risky moves or some very awkward stuff. Is that a reasonable complaint, or is that just something you got to deal with when you get to nationals?
I mean, this year the field was like really stacked. I don't really like saying these words, but like it was really stacked this year. So I think 40 out of the guys could have been in semis. If you looked at whoever was registered, I think 40 of those, are semis material.
Mm-hmm.
And the girls, I mean, my goodness, like, you could have had almost any of those girls in semis. So when that happens, you need to set in a sense of, yeah, you need to have a couple of risky moves to separate. You
Okay.
need to
So
have
yeah,
separation.
I don't necessarily think anything was unfair, but yeah, you're right. I think it was a strong field, and when it comes down to it, when everybody's strong, you got to do something that separates you from everybody else, I guess, right? And
For sure.
that usually means make sure you have a good day and do things right the first time.
Yeah, and
Uh,
if you look at the like the results, you don't see too many ties, which then that's
yeah.
so that's nice. I mean, Simon and man, we really need to know their names, eh?
Yeah, yeah, I'm gonna make sure I tack it on at the end of this. I will recognize all of them. So
And
don't.
my apologies, I should have
I
learned their
will
names.
I will check it. We'll make sure we get it right, and we'll make sure everybody knows who did it because they did do a great job. Um, Now, finally, you are one of the managers, and I'm going to confirm this with you in a second. But you're one of the managers for the Canadian national bouldering team. Um, so, compared to last year, what does this new crop of finalists look like? How's it going to affect what the team looks like this year compared to years in the past?
Yeah, so I was the team manager last year for the event. Like basically in Canada, we don't really have a set manager for the year or anything like that. You apply for events.
Hmm.
Last year, I was the team manager for 4 of the World Cup events, and the year before, I was the team manager for 2 of them.
Hmm.
This year, basically, I felt like I'd like to commit to the team for the entire season if possible. So I am planning to apply to be the team manager for the entire bouldering season. That has like the decision hasn't been made yet by the CEC. They haven't really put an application
Yeah.
process out, but my hope is that I would be able to support the team for the entire season. Yes.
And I should just before we go into how you think the team's going to look this year, it should be clear that when you apply for this, you can be granted the position of the manager for Team Canada, but you don't get any compensation for this, right?
No, it's a fully 100% volunteer position. There's no reimbursement of any expenses or anything like that. It's just it's something that I think is important to support athletes that are going to compete and represent the country at the highest level. So it's something that as a gym owner, I feel like I should support, and I'm able to do that through running it as a business expense basically.
Okay. Well, thank you for doing that. But yeah, getting back
My pleasure.
to the national team, you've seen a couple years worth of different Canadian national teams. Is this year's team going to be any different, or are we going to be seeing a lot of the same names?
Well, I hope that a few new names can come up just to keep developing. Yeah, I was talking to Bronwyn after I was actually talking to her mom, but hopefully Bronwyn goes to 1 or 2 events just to have a feel of. I know she's gone on the youth circuit, but I think the adult World Cups are a little bit different, and I think she would benefit a lot from going to 1 or 2 events.
And that's
Um,
Bronwyn Carness. She's in her second year of age, so she's 16 right now, from
and
Ontario. So
and
she would be the youngest one on the team, for sure, right?
Yes, Yes. And I thought she did a great job this past weekend, and she's been climbing great all year. So to keep that going would be nice. My biggest thing is I'm really curious how Alana is gonna do this year. Last year was just tremendous, like great effort, and to finish 16th in the World Championships was amazing. And hopefully she can continue her progress and get to where she really wants to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited, especially for those athletes that are going to be on the team who we know are well-rounded and also compete in the lead and the speed. I think now's the time to start really getting behind those people. So
Yeah.
it'll be an exciting season. I'm excited to see all of them climb. When is the first stop of the World Cup? When should we start tuning in to see how everybody's doing?
Yeah, the first one is in 4 weeks. It is the weekend of the 7th. It's actually Friday, Saturday, the 7th and 8th of April in Meiringen in Switzerland. Um, I'm not sure yet who is going because, again, we haven't really finalized the standings yet. I'm sure it'll come up in the next day or two. And then, athletes will know. Who can apply and stuff like that. There's only the one event in Europe early on and one really late, and then there are the three in Asia that are back to back, two in China and one in Japan. So it's going to be really hard, I think, for athletes to, especially with our situation of no funding, to commit to doing a lot. And then going to Europe for one event is a lot more expensive than going for two or three events back to back. So I'm really curious too what the team is going to look like so far, but hopefully we'll have good representation and good results.
So we have listeners in Canada and also in the United States, and I know that Canadian and American athletes are in the same boat where they're self-funding, and we know that their staff, their managers are also self-funding to get out to these events around the world. What can you recommend to our listeners if they want to help these North American athletes get out to these World Cups?
Yeah, I think they should, encourage their gyms to keep supporting their athletes financially and, with training facilities and all that stuff. I mean, I'm sure you're aware of our gym's fundraising efforts for the upcoming season. That's something that, if a few other gyms do, it could really help the athletes a lot. So I think as
Can you
climbers,
can you tell us a bit about what you guys are doing? And the gym you run is called the Boiler Room in Kingston, Ontario. What's this fundraising that you guys are doing?
yeah, so basically, our gym has made a pledge for the upcoming bouldering World Cup season that is based on performance of Canadian athletes during each World Cup. So basically, we are pledging to donate $25 for every top during qualifiers by any Canadian athlete, $75 during a semifinal, and $200 for every top in finals. The hopes is to raise money that could support the athletes moving forward and keeping that going from year to year.
That's awesome. So we should be talking to our gyms, talking to the managers, all that kind of stuff, and trying to get them on board with this. If people are interested in supporting what you're doing, should they get in touch with you? Is there's somebody they should get in contact with?
Yeah, I'm always available for anyone has any questions or is interested in trying to help out or try and raise some funds in a different way. It's always great. I should mention that the funds raised is basically it's not my decision where the money goes. It's basically going to be committee of athletes that compete during the circuit that decide where the money is going. So I've made some, suggestions and talked to Sean and talked to a couple of the other athletes just to see where the money is mostly needed.
Okay, well that's awesome. I think anybody that's trying to get started in that kind of initiative is doing good work. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I know it's late. I really appreciate you hanging out at your gym a little bit longer to meet up with me.
No problem, Tyler. Thanks very much for having me.
No problem, and I'll see you in a little bit. Thank you, Malek.
Okay, bye-bye.
If you want to know more about Malek's initiative to raise funds for Canada's World Cup climbers, you can email him at malek@boilerroom.ca. That's MALEK @boilerroom.ca. And as promised, we got to give credit to the setters from this weekend's Nationals. So big props to the chief setter, Simon Parton, the assistant chief, Selena Wong, and Eugene Kremlev and Terry Paholik. Thanks so much, guys. You did a great job. Now, on to the next one. Athletes across the USA are in their final days of preparation for the 2017 Open Difficulty and Speed Nationals being held at Movement Climbing in Denver this weekend. Typically, the speed competition has been overshadowed by the difficulty event, but with speed climbing becoming more relevant as part of the Olympic package, it'll be given more attention this year than ever before. To give us an introduction to speed climbing in the USA, I'm joined by the current American speed champion, American speed record holder, Pan American youth speed champion, and international competitor, John Brosler. John, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
I got to tell you, I almost ran out of breath giving that introduction. You've got a lot of awesome records and titles to your name. Congratulations on all of that stuff.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Where are you joining us from right now?
Right now, I'm in Boulder, Colorado.
Okay, and I understand you're actually coaching now at Team ABC. You're their speed specialist?
Yep, that's correct.
How have you been enjoying that?
I've been liking it a lot. Working with those guys like Robin and Garrett, it's really humbling because they're both such accomplished athletes in their own disciplines as well. And I get to learn a lot from coaching with them along with coaching the talented athletes that they have as well.
Yeah, I can imagine that coaching those kids must be pretty inspiring. As an athlete yourself, some of those kids are pretty incredible.
Yeah, they really are. It's great to work with them, and I feel lucky to be able to do it.
Yeah, that's a great opportunity. So I'm going to get right into it. Speed Nationals this weekend. I want to know, how do you qualify to climb at Speed Nationals in the States?
Well, for Open Nationals, all you have to do is register and be a member of USA Climbing. But
that's it.
That's it. But when you get down to the nitty-gritty details, it's a little bit more than that for sure. The fields for both the speed and difficulty events are just so stacked with crazy good athletes that have been doing this for such a long time. So it's really not wise to be a new climber and decide to just, I'm going to register for Speed Sport Nationals. It's really just a crazy event with a lot of amazing athletes at it.
Okay, so if there are so many, good athletes doing this, why aren't there, qualifying competitions?
Well, for the youth competitions, there are qualifying competitions. There's the regionals, then divisional championships, which is a bit of a broader geographical area, and then that goes to youth nationals. But for Open Nationals, it's very different, and I'm not exactly sure why, but they only have that one competition.
What kind of number of people do you expect to be in the field for this comp this weekend for you guys?
I'd say, let's see, in the past, probably around 150 competitors total. The speed event.
For the speed event specifically.
Yeah, for the speed event, it's usually a little bit smaller with maybe 30 to 40 people for each men and women category.
Okay, that's not bad. I noticed like in the States for bouldering nationals this year, it's a lot of people and you end up with really a full day of qualifiers.
Oh yeah.
And it gets pretty exhausting to watch, or I'm sure to commentate or compete in. Like how long you'd be in ISO would be crazy. But I guess with a field, 30 or 40 people, and especially with how quickly speed heats go, that's actually not that bad. So I guess that's reasonable.
Yeah.
So speed clearly isn't super developed in the USA. It's not that developed in Canada either.
Right.
Where are the current speed hotspots in the States?
In the States, Dallas, Texas, for sure. That's where Team Texas trains out of, and speed climbing is a huge part of their program for the kids. Let's see, there are also a lot of strong athletes from Atlanta, Georgia, with Team Stone Summit. They've got a great facility out there with some really talented athletes as well. But other than those two, it's really kind of just scattered around the U.S., but I'd say those are the two main hotspots for sure.
Stone Summit in Atlanta, they have a regulation speed wall. Does Team Texas have an official speed wall as well?
Yes. It's not quite as up to date and like quote unquote regulation is the one at Stone Summit. But I mean all the holds are correct and they've got great coaches. There's all the holds are in the right spot, so I mean that's all you can really ask for in terms of training for speed
Yeah, for
climbing.
sure. There are no qualifying comps. We already got through that. For
Right.
yourself as a speed competitor, is this really your only competition of the year then until you get to the World Cups?
Yeah, now that I'm too old to compete in the youth competitions, this is my only speed competition of the year that'll allow me to compete internationally.
Most of our listeners know that there is like an official speed wall. And you mentioned that there's a bunch of comps for youth around the country to qualify for speed youth nationals. Are most of those competitions held on regulation walls or at the very least even regulation holds?
Most of them, yeah. In the end, though, it depends on the gym, what the gym hosting the competition has available for the kids to compete on. I've been to competitions where the speed wall is very wrong just because they don't have the proper equipment for it. It's a very specific T-nut setup and
Yeah.
specific holds, but they get it as close as they can. But it's really, unless you have like every piece of proper equipment, then it's hard to actually get a good speed wall and have a good speed competition.
After talking to a couple people, it seems like it's certainly a bit of a disadvantage for training if you're not near an official speed wall. But it seems like if you really like it, you can at least build some fundamentals just by throwing up some holds on a wall and just teaching yourself how to climb it as fast as you can.
Yeah, that's definitely true. The biggest aspect I'd say is just the muscle memory part of it and just knowing the route super well. And if you don't have access to it and you're not able to do that very well, then it's much harder to train consistently.
Okay. Well, you're at the level now where you're climbing on these, official walls. So could you walk us through what makes an official IFSC speed wall?
Yeah, so it can be either 10 meters or 15 meters tall. Usually at the international competitions, it's about 15 meters. The T-nut spacing is very precise. You have to have a specific grid of T-nuts for the actual route and for all the holds being in the correct spots. The wall is 5 degrees overhanging. It looks vertical, but it's got to be exactly 5 degrees overhanging for it to be official. The start height has to be correct. There's really a lot that goes into it. It's got to be perfect.
And what about the holds you're actually using?
Yeah, so the holds are made by a company. The holds are made by Entreprise, and they're all like the same red, weird-looking holds. And they've got like a side that's a jug, a side that's a bit more of a sloper, a side that's a pinch, and they just orient those differently throughout the route. So they have one hold, but a bunch of different spots or grips, so that you still get a bit of a variety in terms of where you're grabbing.
Okay. You mentioned there are two different heights of the wall. Why do they bother to have two different official walls?
I think it's so more gyms can host the speed competitions. Like if there's a gym that's I don't know. I know exactly Movement Denver is 14 and a half meters tall, so they can't have a full
Ouch.
15-meter wall.
Who
So
built that? Who planned that, man? That's brutal.
oh, I don't know. But yeah, just so more gyms can host these speed competitions and have these walls available to them.
So two official different heights. I guess I get that. Not every gym, like 15 meters is basically 45 feet. That's pretty tall. So
Yeah.
I get that not everybody can do that. What's the difference between the two routes aside from the height? Is the 10-meter wall really just the bottom 10 meters of the 15-meter route, or is it set differently?
Yeah, that's basically what it is. So you have the first 10 meters, which is the same on both routes, and then the 15-meter has just a little extra 5-meter section at the top.
Okay. Would you say you're more comfortable with the 10-meter route, or which one kind of suits you better?
I personally am more comfortable with the 10-meter route just because that's what I grew up training on in Dallas. Let's see. So in Dallas, we would have like the 10-meter route set on two sides, and then in the middle, we would have the last 10 meters. So we would still get to practice the full 15-meter
Oh, cool.
wall. But I've definitely been training on the first 10 meters the most.
Okay. I've got this question that's been nagging at me for a while. On the 15-meter route, so in fairness, people won't see this at USA Nationals this weekend, but somewhere towards the top of the 15-meter route, there's one of those big handholds off to the left side of the route that nobody seems to use. What is the deal with that thing?
I wish I could tell you, honestly.
This is a standardized route. It's been used for. Actually, do you know how long this route has been in effect? Because I have no idea.
I think it was first introduced in 2008 at one of the World Championships
Okay,
in
this
France.
so this
So
route's been around, and I'm just really I gotta, you know what, I'm gonna have to schedule an interview for whoever set or designed that route, because that thing's been bothering me for ages.
me
You
too.
know, I just don't get it. Do you know if anybody uses a technique that uses that hold, or does everybody seem to skip it?
Well, if it's your first time on the top 5 meters, people see it and go, "Oh, I'm going to use it," but it's definitely much easier to skip it.
So it's
On
like a
the
red herring for all the inexperienced people.
yeah.
That's awesome. So we're only a couple days away now from Sport and Speed Nationals. What are you doing as part of your training at this stage in the season?
Recently, I've been going up to Fort Collins, which is the closest gym to Boulder that has a full 10-meter wall. And I've been doing that with a few of the kids from ABC that are competing as well. So I've just been getting as many runs in as I can. I've had a bit of a lull in recent months in my speed training just because I've been distracted by all the bouldering here as well. but but yeah, I'm like starting to get back into it, just starting to refamiliarize myself with the route, and I've been doing some strength training off the wall as well, just in like a normal gym, and yeah, that's basically it for now.
So the United States, a little bit like Canada up here, in that we don't actually send that many competitors to World Cups. It seems pretty expensive for all of us on this side of the Atlantic Ocean, and
Right,
both of our governing bodies aren't really at a stage right now where they do much to financially support all that kind of travel.
right.
Um, I know for sure you've been to a few Speed World Cups. I know you've been to a World Championship or two, and also the Youth World Championships. Is there anybody else in the U.S. Speed delegation that you would expect to hit up some international competitions if they make the team this year?
Oh yeah, for sure. Speed climbing is growing, definitely. I know in particular, my friend Max Hammer from Michigan. He's a very, very strong athlete, and he's been to some world championships and some World Cups as well. Let's see, there's Erica Meister from the same city that's also really up and coming in the speed in the international speed field. Let's see, and there's some others that have definitely been to World Cups and World Championships. It's getting bigger for sure, and I think we'll see a lot more athletes in the future, especially from the youth circuit, competing in those World Cups.
Well, I'm going to ask you then for the speed comp this weekend, and you're going to have to recuse yourself. We're going to assume you're not competing. Who do you think are your top picks for speed champions this year? And you can't say yourself.
Oh, that's hard to say. Max for sure. He's a very strong athlete. He always has been. I'm sure he's been training a lot for this competition. Let's see. Then there are a few athletes from back in Dallas. My old friend Gentry, who's always pretty fast, very strong in the speed field. Some of the Stone Summit athletes, my friend Luke Muring and Thomas Pitzel, they're very strong. Then on the girls' side, there's Claire Burfind, who doesn't train much speed, but she's just an overall such a talented athlete. She's won the event in the past. Um, let's see. Yeah, I think those are all the names I would pick out for
All right, cool.
top
Yeah,
spots
man.
on the podium.
What about the difficulty field? I know you're not competing in the difficulty comp this weekend, but you got any top picks?
I am doing difficulty actually.
Are you? I didn't see
Yeah,
that in the
yeah,
start list. Okay, my bad.
yeah. I'm very excited for it. But
That's
let's
awesome.
see. On the guys side, let's see. Sean Bailey is definitely a
Yeah,
very strong
he's having a great
competitor.
season this year.
Let's see. He won the event last year. I can see him doing it again for sure. There's Daniel Woods, Carlo, all those guys. And then on the girls' side, again, there's Claire, I guess. Let's see. Then there's Margot, who just did 15A, so I
Jeez,
can
I know.
definitely see her taking the event as well. Then yeah, I'd say those are all the names I'd pick out.
How does it feel? All those names you just mentioned are basically kids that you grew up competing against in the youth circuit. Does it feel a little bit surreal to know that you're going to the Open Nationals and basically all the names you're spitting are the kids you grew up with?
Yeah, it is a little strange. Open Nationals has definitely transitioned into the youth scene has definitely been been growing on the Open Nationals field. in recent years instead of just the old guys like it has been in the past, or at least that's how I remember it as a youth competitor. But yeah, it is a little bit surreal. All these guys that I've met and become friends with, and I'm competing against them in every single competition. So it's a weird dynamic for sure.
That's really cool. I'm going to end it with one last thing, just asking you for some constructive ideas. I know for sure there's a lot of kids, not just in the States, not just in Canada, but around the world who look at speed climbing and they might be really driven to try that. It's a really cool looking sport, but not everybody is lucky enough to be near a gym with a speed wall. What are the little things that a community, a small climbing gym or parents and kids can do to help get kids or even adults, I guess, but let's focus on kids. What can we do in the baby steps to help kids start trying speed climbing?
Well, I know at ABC where we began with pretty much no access to a 10 meter or a 15-meter wall. We just built like a little 5 meter section in a stray spot in our gym, and that's been helping the kids a lot. We just rotate the section through so that each kid gets to try a piece of the full route at a time, and we just rotate those sections like every 2 weeks or so. So just building or getting the kids access to any part of the wall is probably the first step that I would take. Just organizing maybe trips to the closest gym with a full speed wall, and yeah, just getting the community together if there's a big enough group that's psyched, just to make it happen. And that's probably what I would say.
Just take those baby steps and start it growing and go from there.
Pretty much, yeah. Just get them access to a wall as quick as you can, and then it'll go from there for sure if the kids are psyched.
Cool, man. Well, thanks so much for taking some time to talk to us.
Thank
I
you.
wish you the
Thank you for
best of
having
luck
me.
this weekend, not just in speed, but difficulty too. I'll be watching for you, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks a lot, John. We'll talk to you later.
Sounds good. Bye.
And a quick follow up to that one unanswered question about that hold on the speed route that never gets used. According to some comments made by Eddie Folk, the prolific IFSC photographer, on a recent episode of the Chalk Talk climbing podcast hosted by John Blomquist, Eddie states that one of the footholds up near this unused hold was actually set incorrectly early on. The foothold was turned in a way that it becomes a really good handhold, and people now use that to skip the hold that John and I were talking about. So the speed route is wrong, according to Eddie Folk. I might confirm that some other time, but anyway, that's what we've heard so far. Now, on to our final interview. Now, in my opinion, this is the most informative interview of the day, but unfortunately, it also has the worst sound. We had some brutal issues when we were talking together. I got a bunch of people to help edit the sound for me, so it's very processed, and it is still a bit quiet. So sorry about that. You might have to turn up the volume on this one, but do pay attention. It's probably the most informative couple minutes of talking you're going to hear in the next couple days. So please enjoy. Each year, the International Federation of Sport Climbing convenes a meeting of its members to connect, discuss, and determine policy for the world of sport climbing. 2016's plenary assembly was held in Tehran, and this year it stops in Quebec City this weekend. Here to give us an inside view of how the plenary assembly works and what will be discussed is President of the Pan American Council and member of the IFSC's Executive Board, Maria Izquierdo. Hi, Maria.
Hi.
Hey, can you tell us a little bit about who's going to be attending the plenary assembly this weekend?
We're going to have representatives from all over the world. It's going to be a big assembly because it's an important one. It's the first one after we got the Olympic announcement. So we're going to have representation from each continent.
Okay. The press release for this event outlines a lot of subjects that are up for discussion, including the schedule for the 2017 World Cup season, some rule changes, and the qualifications process for the Olympics. But it doesn't make clear if any of these subjects will be voted on and resolved or just discussed. Will there be concrete decisions made this weekend?
Yes. there's going to be some voting during the assembly. There's going to be discussion. There's going to be a pre-assembly where there's going to be presentations and workshops and many discussions are going to go on. It's the first time it's going to be held that way because previously we used to have a presentation and the assembly on one day. And we're going to have 2 days prior to the General Assembly with workshops. And it's going to be the first time it's going to be that way. And then during the assembly, there's going to be voting on propositions that have been already sent to all the federations. So yeah, the format that has been presented for the Olympics has to be voted by the assembly. It's not a absolute final decision because some work is still to be done with the Olympic Committee, but we need the approval of the assembly to have it presented to the Olympic Committee. So that's one of the aspects. There's going to be some voting about membership rules. There's going to be changes on the different level of membership that you can get to get into the IFSC as a national federation, because now we have many new countries interested. The Olympic Committee just got the information from the International Olympic Committee to consider all the federations, climbing federation, national federation, as the other sports for the next 4 years. So we have new interest, and we're going to try to accompany some of the new federations willing to get into the climbing world. So there's a vote on that. So there's going to be many issues that are going to be voted during the assembly.
Okay, just talking about some of the different countries and different federations. How or what different types of memberships are there currently? So I imagine countries like Austria and Canada and the United States are full members. Are there other different grades of membership?
Yeah, we used to have the associate member and then the continental member. And the continental member is going to still be there, but there's going to be a new level of membership, which is going to be the developing continental membership. There won't be any more the associate, because it wasn't very clear what the status of an associate member was. The continental members are allowed to participate to the continental championships, the athletes from those countries that are continental members, and to the World Championships, but they're not allowed to participate to the World Cups. And we have some countries, as I was saying, that not yet have a federation, but some high-level athletes that are willing to enter the international circuit of competition. And then they could be under another full member federation that could accompany them and help them get structure and provide them the possibility to compete at an international level.
Well, I think any changes that help more climbers get climbing at World Cups is definitely a good change. The developing continental memberships, are they given voting rights at these plenary assemblies?
Not at the plenary assembly. At the IFSC plenary assembly, they're going to be allowed to be at the continental assembly, but they won't have a voting right because they don't yet have a complete structure. So they're getting into there, so they're allowed to participate, they're allowed to attend, they're allowed to give their opinion, but they won't have yet a voting right.
Okay. This weekend, I noticed on the schedule that there are two different types of meetings going on. Some of them consist of only the 10-member executive board, and others include the entire assembly, which is all of the national federations. So we talked a little bit about some issues about qualifying for the Olympics and changes to the rules. Which of these two groups will actually be making the decisions on these issues?
The final decision is always the plenary assembly that takes it. There's going to be a pre-meeting by the board, which is going to make the recommendations to the plenary assembly. So the meeting with the executive board that is held prior, it's going to be a session to prepare the General Assembly. We have the continental assemblies also that are going to have their votes about issues that concern their specific continent.
Okay. So you mentioned that there will be voting taking place this weekend, but that some of it may not be final, especially in regards to the Olympics, because I guess you need to confer with the International Olympic Committee. But if you are going to be talking about the Olympic qualification process for sport climbing, are there already some prepositions? Are there already some options of how to do that are going to be debated this weekend?
Yes, the proposition is going to be on the table. It's going to be presented about the sport climbing Olympic format for the youth Olympics and for the regular Olympics, because we're going to have also the Youth Olympic Games in 2018.
And that's in Buenos Aires?
Exactly.
Okay. Are you able to give us a preview of what that preposition is for the qualifications?
What is proposed actually is that there has to be what is called events for qualification that they have to be on the same format as the Olympic format is going to be. So the qualification process is going to have representation from climbers from all over the world. So there's going to be part of the qualification that's going to come from the overall World Cup ranking, and part of the qualification is going to come from the continental championships, and some is going to come from, most of it is going to come from the world championships.
Okay, so I know something that concerned some countries was that if we're limited to 20 climbers taking part at the Olympics, that it might become dominated by climbers from the strongest countries. So you may run into, 5 competitors from Japan, 5 from Austria, 5 from Germany, and 5 from let's say Russia for speed climbing. But you're saying that this proposition would make sure that there is appropriate representation from around the world, no matter what.
Yes, because there's going to be a maximum of 2 representatives of each gender coming from a national Olympic committee. So from one federation, you can't have more than 2 representatives from each gender.
Okay, so any country isn't allowed any more than 4 climbers going to the Olympics.
Exactly.
Okay. And I had a question just on, and I know this isn't a decision of the IFSC. The Olympic Committee has limited climbing to a total of 20 competitors for this Olympics. Why is that limit being imposed on us? Is that imposed on other sports as well?
Yes, well, there's actually, we had the opportunity to get into the Olympics because the organizing committee of Tokyo, they had to present a proposition to include new sports. And they had some criteria they had to respect. And one of the criteria was the number of athletes that were allowed. They could have made different decisions. They could have decided to go for only 2 sports and more athletes. They really arrived with an unexpected proposition with 5 new sports. Nobody expected that. But
It was they were expected to choose maybe one or two or three sports and allow more athletes for each sport. Was that the
exactly,
expectation?
exactly, and that was it took by surprise everybody because they respected all the criteria that was given to them and still be able to present five new disciplines to the Olympics. So the decision of the number of athletes overall over the number of sports that would be included, there was a maximum. And depending how they presented it, that could influence the number of athletes for each sport. And we knew for sure that Japan was going to ask that to present that baseball gets in. It's their national sport. So we already knew that there was going to be a lot of athletes in a sport, in a team sport, and they made it somehow. They reduced the number of teams that were allowed to the Olympics to I think it's 6 or 8, which is very very few teams that are going to be at the Olympics. But at least they got it there. So yeah, there's some limits, and we hope that next time, because we hope and expect that it's not a one-shot deal and that climbing is going to stay there, that the number of athletes could increase.
So at this point, it is a one-shot deal for climbing. It has only been approved for the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. Once the Tokyo Olympics are over, we will have to, I guess, go through this process again, where we'll have to get approved by the IOC and then go through another process of deciding how to qualify athletes. In a dream world, where you didn't have a limit of 20 competitors going. Has there been discussion of what an ideal process would look like or what an ideal format at the Olympics would look like?
Of course, a lot of athletes would like to see each discipline being included as their own, not only the combined into the Olympics. And that would be great if that possibility was there. But one thing is important to understand is that the process won't start after the Olympics. It will start, actually, it started already, because the decision is going to be taken probably before the next Olympics starts. What are going to be the new sports in the next one? So the same way that it was announced prior to Rio, which sports were going to be in Tokyo, the same process is going to happen for the next time. So actually everything we're doing right now is important. Every event, every competition, we have to show the world that we belong into the Olympics.
I didn't realize that. I assumed that the Olympics in 2020 would be a chance for us to make an argument for the 2024 Olympics, but you're saying that it's all the stuff we're doing right now is really what's going to make that decision to see if it sticks around. So, well, I better start behaving, and all of us will have to kind of start living to a higher standard. I wasn't aware of that. So aside from the Olympic topics, what are some of the other big topics being discussed this weekend?
The main topic is going to be the Olympics, actually. Yeah, there's going to be the elections. That's the other topic, because we're going to have elections for many important positions: the presidency, the treasurer, vice president. So we have important positions that are going to go onto election. So that's really an important thing.
Are those elections made by the entire assembly? I guess those are the
Yep.
positions in the executive board. Okay.
Exactly.
How long is a term on the executive board?
It's a 4-year term.
Okay. All right. And then a question that's important to me, and I know you're from North America, and you represent not just North America, but South and Central America as well. Are there any events or anything being discussed this weekend that is particularly important to climbers in North America?
Yeah, there's two very important things that are going to be discussed. Central Saanich is going to present this candidature to host the 2018 Youth World Championships. So
Okay.
that's going to be a vote, an important vote. That shouldn't be a problem because it was kind of pre pre-discussed already, and so it should be a formality to have it adopted by the Assembly. There's also another event during the Continental Council. There's going to be also the presentation for the to host the Continental Championships, Youth Championships this year in Montreal.
Oh, excellent! I didn't know about that. The last Continental Championships for the Americas was, if I remember, it was in Mexico City in 2014. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay, and
Exactly.
so this is 3 years later. I know most continents try and do one of these every single year. Why in North America has it been so sporadic?
We have a continent that is so different from South America and North America, and we have been struggling a lot. The federations from our continent are a lot of them into restructure or political situations. Here in Canada, we've been in a big transition also. So it, it wasn't really easy for the past 3 years to have a country being able to host international events because of, as I said, whether it is the political situation, whether it is the economic situation, or just that the federation is getting restructured. Let's say Venezuela, that used to be a very strong country and very organized. They had their whole country really in a political difficult situation for the past year. So they haven't been able to organize an event. And actually they proposed to organize an event, but we couldn't accept it because people from Canada or United States couldn't attend. So that was a problem because of
And
security situation.
we weren't allowed to attend because of not just politics and climbing, but the actual big world politics in Venezuela
Exactly.
banned us from visiting. Wow,
Yeah,
it's not very often you think about the politics of government affecting climbing, but I guess it does.
it does. They weren't banning us. Actually, it's our government that were telling us not to travel over there, and our insurances wouldn't cover. And if we
Oh
had a
wow.
problem, we wouldn't be in security. So that was a problem.
Wow, that's interesting. What was it then that made this Montreal proposal come together? Who was really behind it to make it work?
Well, actually, we took over because we didn't have a proposition, and we really needed. And that event, we really needed to have a continental event this year because it's the qualification for the Youth Olympic Games. And
Okay.
if we don't have an event, we don't have the possibility to have our athletes qualify for the Youth Olympics. So I'm behind it.
We can always count on you to get behind it when we need somebody.
So yeah, we actually created a new organization here in Montreal, which is called Accès Escalade Montreal. It's a non-for-profit organization that is going to be in charge of organizing events and give access to climbing to people that don't necessarily have the monetary capacity to have it. Actually, this organization is going to be using the Horizon Rock climbing gym.
Okay.
And it's going to also propose services for athletes. So it's really to help out, promote, and expand all the possibilities for climbing. And we have the support of the provincial government and all the municipal authorities that are supporting this initiative. And we're really, really glad because that's what makes it possible.
Okay, so for this proposal, the event would be taking place at Horizon Rock. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, there's going to
Okay.
be big changes in the gym in the months to come.
Okay. And I just wanted to make clear, I know you're associated with Horizon Rock. Are you part of the ownership team or the management team at Horizon
Yes,
Rock?
I'm one of the owners.
Okay, good to make that clear. Well, that sounds like there's a lot of exciting stuff, not just for North America, but really everybody in sport climbing. So I know you guys are having a press conference on Sunday. I think I'll be there. Is that when we should expect to hear the big news on the finalization for this North American event, and then also your proposals to the IOC for the Olympic qualifiers?
Yes, there's going to be all the information is going to be given during the press conference. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, I think I'll see you there. For now, I know you've got a lot of work to do this week to prepare for this event. You seem to be the driving force behind nearly everything that goes on in Quebec. So I'm going to let you go. I know it's getting late. Thank you so much, Maria, for taking this time to talk with me. I really appreciate it.
It was a great pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No problem. We'll see you this weekend.
Thank you.
And that's it for this week's episode of Plastic Weekly. Thanks to Malek Taleb, John Brosler, and Maria Izquierdo for answering my questions, and thanks to you guys for listening. Our theme music is by Javelin, with additional music by Mirth Nark. Plastic Weekly is currently self-funded and we're not airing ads just yet, so please support it by subscribing on iTunes or Google Play, leave it a good review, and share it with your friends. You have no idea how much it helps the podcast. You can find more information and relevant links about this episode at plasticweekly.com, and you can follow us on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. You can send me an email to tyler@plasticweekly.com with your comments, questions, compliments. Just tell me you're out there. Somewhere. Congratulations to Carla Esponda and Franz Weber for winning Mexican Bouldering Nationals last weekend, and good luck to everyone competing at American Sport and Speed Nationals this weekend. We'll be thinking about you. See you next week.